kind of having a reputation over the course of my career of being somebody who improves things. That if I take something over, I'm going to figure out a better way to do it, and we're going to find improvements, and that's led to a lot of success over the course of my career. And I think it comes from just having a natural curiosity.
Imagine watching your family's business collapse in your teenage years and then dedicating your entire career to making sure that that never happens to someone else. Well, that's exactly what today's guest did. Welcome back to The Root of All Success. I am the real Jason Duncan, and today's guest is Luke Boyinger. He's a CPA, a data analytics coach. He's a fractional CFO who helps business owners make sense of their numbers and steer their companies toward sustainable success. He's been at a Big Four audit desk, and he's also advised small business founders inside, places like inside the Exeter Club for me, right? I mean, he could do this for mastermind business owners anywhere. He brings precision, clarity, and a strategic lens to the financials that make or break a business. And he's not just good with numbers. He's got a passion for helping entrepreneurs build something that lasts. So please help me welcome Luke Boyinger to the show. Welcome up, Luke.
Thank you so much, Jason. Appreciate it.
So you watched your family's business shut down during your teenage years. So tell us a little bit about that story and then how that moment shaped your definition of what a quote healthy business actually looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a painful process to have to go through for sure, especially when it's a family business that a lot of the family is involved in. You don't just have one family member who loses their income. You have kind of the whole family does. So it's a big deal, and something I would not wish on anybody. But at the same time, it was also very educational, right? We learned a lot through that process, and one of the things that really stuck with me is we went bankrupt during a terrible economic time, the terrible financial recession, 2007, 2008. But a lot of other companies did not go bankrupt during that same hard financial time. And I wanted to know why, which is why I ultimately went back to school. And what I learned was nobody in my family knew anything about accounting and finance. So we were not skilled to appropriately understand the cost of our product. So we didn't price it correctly, and we weren't as profitable as we should be. And when hard times came, the business wasn't ready, and we ultimately collapsed. So hard times, hard lessons learned, but led me down a path of being able to understand what we did wrong so I can help other people not do the same thing.
What kind of business was it?
It was a niche manufacturing business. So we specialized in remanufacturing torque converters for automatic transmissions.
Wow. That is definitely a niche business. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've worked at EY, you've coached data analytics, and you've served as a director of accounting. So what made you shift toward serving entrepreneurs as a fractional CFO?
Yeah, great question. So I went back to school in my mid-20s because I wanted to close the skill set gap, right? That's when I got my degree in accounting and decided, hey, I want to go spend some time in industry learning accounting and finance. So that's why I went to Ernst & Young. That's why I did some time in corporate America. But ultimately, in the back of my mind, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was what I wanted to pursue. I just wanted to learn how to do it the right way before I did it so that I could build something that would be, successful and sustainable long term. And, a decade into my financial career, I arrived at a point where I felt like I'd closed the skill set gap that I was looking to close. I knew the things that I had wanted to learn. I was ready to go be a successful entrepreneur and start a business. And ultimately, the business that I decided I wanted to start was one that helped other business owners not make the mistakes that lead to bankruptcy, that lead to selling yourself short, leaving profit on the table, struggling with cash flow constantly. I wanted to start a business that would help other business owners solve those problems, and Fractional CFO was the best opportunity for me to do that.
I want to go back to the emotions of that moment. How old were you when that happened?
When the bankruptcy happened,
Yeah, when the
I
business closed
was,
and bankruptcy. Yeah.
that is a good question. 2021, somewhere in there.
Okay. So the business was collapsing, and then the final, nail was in the coffin 20 when in your 2021 and 2000, what, 8, 9, something like that. And your parents the main, the CEO, whatever, president of the company, and then they had other family members working in the company. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, my dad owned the company. My mom did all the bookkeeping, and my brother and I both worked in the company for my dad.
Gotcha. And so the emotions of losing the company and then ultimately having to file bankruptcy, can you describe what that looked like from the 21-year-old lens, looking at your parents and watching them go through that?
If I have to.
Ah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? It's not like a business just went bankrupt on some random day, right? It went bankrupt during one of the worst economic recessions of my lifetime. So finding employment in that time was difficult. So it wasn't like, oh, well, we shut the doors to the business and we all went and got new jobs and it was fine. There was, a long time for some of the family members to find employment again, to the point where, people from church were leaving bags of groceries on the doorstep, right? I'm not talking about, oh, we had to sell the Ferrari, right? Oh, it was so hard for us. No, like it was, it was hard. Like it was really hard. There was questions: Are we going to be able to keep the house, right? Like, yeah, just a really really challenging time.
And I know that had to have been difficult. So I appreciate you going into that emotion just a little bit. But tell me about the recovery now that it's been so many years have passed. How are things looking now? Do you look back and go, okay, that sucked, but man, we made it. We're stronger now, or is there still residual pain from that?
So there's probably always going to be some residual pain from it. So always some what if, what if we could have made it work and we're running a multi-billion-dollar torque converter empire today. I don't know if that exists, but maybe it could have. You always wonder, what if. But you can either choose to dwell on the hurt and the pain and the negative of those things, or you can try to find positives, right? So it launched me down a different path that's led me to where I am today, and I'm happy where I am today. It taught us all a lot about finance and money, and not just within a business, but within our personal lives as well. Um, Minimizing debt, living in within our means, having a personal budget, like all that stuff becomes really important. And the ability to live on less is an important skill set to have. So a lot of things were learned, and you can take positives away from bad things that happen, and ultimately everyone landed on their feet and is in a good place now. But certainly it took a little while to get there.
Did your mom and dad start another business later, or what did they do?
They did not. No, my dad has done a couple things since then. Currently, he does sales for a commercial roofing company, and he's doing really well.
Okay, good. Well, let's get back to your story about numbers. So a lot of business owners, they feel overwhelmed by the numbers. Hopefully, not to the degree that they lose the business, but I think the overwhelm is still there. So, why do you think financial illiteracy is still such a widespread issue among entrepreneurs?
Because it's not taught in high school, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't go to college. And even if they do, a lot of degrees don't study accounting or finance, and so you don't get it there. Um, and if it's not something that you're naturally curious about and interested in, I mean, honestly, there's probably a lot of people with accounting degrees who don't know anything about accounting because they learned enough to pass that week's exam and moved on, right? They don't care. It wasn't interesting to them. Um, but yeah, financial literacy in general, our country as a whole does not do a great job of teaching it.
Yeah, yeah, and financial illiteracy is a big deal. And your comment about even a lot of accountants don't know it. I have been with so many accountants over the years as an entrepreneur that screwed stuff up, and we blindly, and I don't know
Yep.
if blindly is the right word. We put our trust in these people because they have the letters behind their name and they have the schooling we
Yep.
expect them. But I've had accountants do terrible things. I had one that cost me about 90 grand in overpaid sales tax to the state of Tennessee that I never got back. And
Mm.
it was just a mistake that they made. Anyway, I could go on and on for that. But what's a mistake? What's a common mistake that you see that quietly can destroy a business's long-term viability?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, if we're talking about mistakes specifically, like on the accounting side of things, and I guess for the business owner too, I think it's an overemphasis on tax savings. Honestly, like obviously, you don't want to pay 90 grand in sales tax that you don't need to, for sure. But I talk to a lot of business owners. They come to me and they're like, "Man, how do I pay less in taxes? I gotta find a better tax accountant. I gotta pay less in taxes. Pay less in taxes. Pay less in taxes." I'm like, "Man, you're running a $10 million business that's not making any money. What are you talking about? Like taxes are not your problem. Your problem is you aren't paying enough in tax because you aren't making any money. Like we need to figure out how to get you paying more taxes because you're actually running a profitable company that's generating money. Like people think the problem is not what the problem is. There's an overemphasis on tax savings that causes people to make decisions that hurt their business. So they do everything humanly possible to drive taxable income down and show that their business didn't make any profit for years. And then all of a sudden they want to get a line of credit from the bank, or they want to borrow money, get a term loan to do an expansion project or something like that. And nobody will lend them money because banks and financial institutions are not in the business of lending to companies that don't make money. They want to show that they want to see that you have profit, that you're going to have the ability to repay the loan. And so this overemphasis on tax savings can actually be really detrimental to a lot of people.
Now, you also talk about aligning business models to strategic visions. So
Yeah,
can you give an example of what a misaligned model looks like in practice?
yeah, absolutely. So a lot of business owners say they want to grow, right? I want a bigger company. I want to grow my company. I want to do more revenue. And their business model then becomes revenue growth. And they start chasing revenue for the sake of revenue and getting any cash in the door that they can, whether it's good revenue or bad revenue. And I mean, the number of times companies have gone from 5 million revenue, 500,000 net profit to 10 million revenue, 400,000 net profit is staggering. It happens all the time. They double their revenue and their actual take home goes down. They're less profitable because their business model is broken. They have not clearly defined what type of revenue they take on, what type of revenue they do not. They don't know what they say no to versus what they say yes to. They don't have systems and processes in place to make sure they only take on profitable revenue that meets their criteria from a profit standpoint. And so because the business model isn't there and they don't have clear targets and goals around what they're trying to accomplish, they'll just take any revenue that comes knocking on the door and not realize that it's not actually achieving what they're out to achieve, because the goal is never to grow revenue. The goal is always to grow profit.
Amen. That is so good. Have you read the book The Goal, by the way?
I have not.
Oh, wow. This is a great book. I've actually got it right here. I'll show it for the listeners that are watching. This is a book called The Goal by Eli Goldratt. It was written in the 80s, and it's a novel. It's pretty clever. It's a novel, but it's a business book, and it's actually a thick book. You see how thick it is. But it's
Yeah.
a novel about a manufacturing plant and the guy who's in charge of the manufacturing plant trying to figure out what is the goal of the plant. Is it to be more efficient? And he hires this consultant and he's like, no, the goal is to make profit. Like that's why you're here. So efficiency be
Yeah.
damned. Like if we're not efficient but we're making money, that's fine. If we're efficient not making money, that's not good. So I'm glad to hear a practical person like you as an outsourced CFO to say, look, our goal isn't revenue, our goal is profit. Because things like I've had a company on Inc. magazine's Inc. 5,000 fastest growing privately held companies. I've been there twice. Now, the first year I was on there, we made a lot of money. So it included the top line. Second year I was on there, we lost money. but
Yeah.
I was still on the list. I was because they
Yeah.
didn't ask that question, and that's the thing that people aren't asking. It's like profit. Your
Yeah.
bottom right hand number on the P&L is the most important number. So, look,
Yeah.
you've seen businesses, Luke, from inside, both as an auditor and a strategic advisor. So, what's something that most entrepreneurs think is a strength, but you found to actually be a liability? Maybe like chasing revenue, but maybe something different than that.
Yeah. Um, there seems to be this idea with a lot of entrepreneurs that there's like this pride in pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, and like, I did this myself. I built this company with my bare hands from scratch, and I didn't need no help from no one to do it. Almost like this, look how awesome I am that I didn't need help. Like, I built a $10 million company without any help from anybody. Aren't I awesome? And the reality is, no, that's actually not awesome. Like, I mean, congratulations, you were successful, good job, but you don't realize you could have been a $50 million company if you would have just asked for help from the right people and brought in and surrounded yourself with a team who has knowledge and skill sets in areas that you don't, where you could have 10x'd what you've done so far. So I feel like there's a little bit of this founder mindset of, I did it all myself, I didn't need help, aren't I awesome? When it should have been, I always say people want to go to the bar and brag about how far they got on their own. I was like, well, wouldn't you go to the bar and brag about how you got 10 times further because you asked for help?
Yeah. Wow. That's good. That's a good perspective, Luke. Thank you. So
Sure.
when you walk into a new company as a CFO, what are the first two or three things you assess that tell you whether this is a well-run business?
Yeah, number one is gross profit. I want to look at how efficiently they earn their revenue. Every industry has a gross profit benchmark that tells you what kind of gross profit you should really achieve in that industry. And I want to see whether they're over or underperforming that benchmark. Because if they're underperforming, then they're leaving profit on the table. There's something wrong with either their bidding process, uh, how they price their work, or in the execution side, where they're not executing within the confines of the cost that they said they would execute within. And that is where a lot of profitability leaks out of the business right out the gate. So gross profit is a big one. Second one is cash flow. What is the cash conversion cycle in the business? How strong is cash flow? Do we have cash flow concerns? Are there things we need to change in terms of how we manage cash so that we bring it in sooner and keep it longer? Usually when someone comes to us, it's connected to cash. We rarely have business owners that come to us and say, "Hey, we're best in class profit margin in our industry, and we have more money in the bank than we know what to do with. Can you please come help us?" It's like, no, those aren't the companies that need help, right? It's always profit and cash is why people come talk to us.
With the economy where it is right now, are you seeing any trends in how small businesses are either thriving or collapsing based on financial habits?
No, I'm only seeing trends in how mindsets are surviving and collapsing because of the economy. If I'm being completely honest, I haven't talked to a single business owner who can point to an actual negative economic impact from the current economy. I'm not saying there aren't any out there. Certainly, there are industries that have been hit by tariffs and things like that. I know that happens. But most of what I'm hearing is people being afraid of what they think could happen over the next 6 to 12 months rather than just focusing on the business, focusing on the fundamentals. Go out and continue to do what you do best. Believe that you're going to win work. Price it correctly so that you make a profit. Manage your cash flow the way that you're supposed to, and you're going to be fine. I mean, most business owners, if they're being honest and they've been in business long enough, they can point to maybe two or three things in the last couple of decades that have actually like been big deals that really hurt their business. The rest of it was all just noise promoted by the media to generate clicks and sell magazines and newspapers, right? Fear sells, and so fear is what's in the news, and people get scared and they hold back and they don't go invest in their company and grow their business like they're supposed to because they're afraid of tariffs, they're afraid of war, they're afraid, oh, Donald Trump's going to take over the world. Yeah, there's all this fear out there that paralyzes people and prevents them from taking action. Where if you just tune out the noise, focus on your business, focus on your market and your fundamentals, continue to do what you do it well, and sell, then 9 times out of 10, whatever's happening in the broader news and economy isn't going to impact you.
If you had to strip it down, what is the most underutilized but powerful financial habit that a founder can build into their business starting right now?
Financial review, looking at your numbers and understanding where they should be versus where they are. So many business owners I talk to do not have a formal process for reviewing their financial performance every single month at all. They don't. They're looking at their pipeline. How much work do we have in the pipeline? They're looking at their cash balance. How much money do we have in the bank? And they're looking at payroll and accounts payable and accounts receivable. How much money am I going to have coming in? How much money am I going to have going out? And they're worried about cash. They're looking at cash, but they're not really doing a comprehensive financial review and understanding how their business is performing every single month from a gross margin perspective, from a net profit perspective, from a cash flow perspective. And frankly, something as simple and basic and fundamental as having a budget. How much do I think I should spend over the next 12 months based on the goals that I have and the things I want to achieve? And then monitoring your progress against that budget every month and making sure that you're staying aligned. And hey, 6 months ago when we built the budget, we didn't plan on buying 6 brand new pickup trucks because we drove by them and they looked nice sitting at the car lot, right? So we're not going to do that. But if we did, we're going to course correct. We're going to learn from that mistake and we're not going to do it again. Like having that, like any form of formal financial review process is something that most business owners unfortunately just skip.
Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor for this episode, Constant Closer. If you are a course creator with an email list, or anybody with an email list for that matter, you're probably leaving money on the table. Why? Because your audience has learned to ignore generic email blasts. Constant Closer is an AI sales agent that sends personalized one-on-one emails to your subscribers that are designed to convert. So whether it's trying to fill the webinar seats or book sales calls, it isn't just automation, it's artificial sales intelligence. Brands like Live Your Message, Ziggy Media, and the real Jason Duncan and the Exeter Club, we use Constant Closer to drive results without necessarily having to hire a sales team. So if you're ready to finally monetize your email list the smart way, you can check them out at therealjasonduncan.com/constant closer. That's therealjasonduncan.com/constant closer. Now back to the show and our conversation with Luke Boyinger. Luke, this is the name of this show is The Root of All Success. So what would you say is your one key that has unlocked success for you more than anything else?
Yeah, I think it's curiosity. Being curious about why things are the way they are, why they work the way they do, what's the right way to do things, what's the best way to do things. I've just always been that kind of person that I come into a business or a role or a job and they train me on it and it's always, okay, this is what we do and this is how we've always done it. And my mind just immediately starts going to why? Why do you do it that way? Why don't you do it this way? And just being really curious about the process and is there a better way to do it? And it's led to me kind of having a reputation over the course of my career of being somebody who improves things. That if I take something over, I'm going to figure out a better way to do it and we're going to find improvements. And that's led to a lot of success over the course of my career. And I think it comes from just having a natural curiosity.
How do you personally define success?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that one a lot lately, honestly, because as an entrepreneur myself and someone who's building a business, and being a little ways into this journey now, kind of coming back and saying, hey, what is it I'm really trying to build? Like, if I could be the next Elon or the next Jeff Bezos, would I actually want to do that? Like, if I got to that point where I consider myself successful, and the answer would honestly be no. I mean, Elon works 100 hours a week, and I don't want that. That doesn't sound fun. That's not the life I want. I wouldn't call that successful. Jeff Bezos, a lot of these really ultra successful people, they've achieved a lot, they've got a lot, but they've also sacrificed certain things, right? I can walk down any sidewalk in the United States and nobody's going to know who I am. And that is worth a lot to me. So I define success as building the life you want instead of the life that you're offered, instead of the life that people put in front of you and say, hey, this is what you should want. To me, success is figuring out what it is you actually want your life to look like and going and building it.
Based on that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
I do. Yeah, I do now because I'm building what I want. Right. I spent my time in corporate America and doing the things I felt like I was supposed to do. And now I'm finally in a position where I'm going out and building what I want and creating the life that I want around that.
I want you to put your coach or consultant hat on for just a second, and I want you to answer this question for our benefit, the listeners and me both. What's your best piece of advice for entrepreneurs?
Don't settle for what you're capable of achieving on your own. Going back to what I said before about the whole pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps kind of thing, it just doesn't make sense, right? I talk to business owners sometimes. They're like, hey, we're making 5% net profit on 20 million in revenue. What do we need you for? We're profitable. We don't need you. You're for those losers who don't know how to make money. We know how to make money. We're 5% net profit. Well, yeah, 5% net profit is what you've been able to achieve on your own. But in your industry, you should be able to get to 8 to 10% net profit, no problem. So you're sacrificing 3 to 5% net profit simply because you don't want to ask for help. You think about a difference of 3 to 5% on 20 million in revenue, it's huge. It's a lot of money. And 5% net profit, yeah, you're making great money, you're doing well. And you don't need that extra 3 to 5%. That's true. You don't need it. But wouldn't you kind of like to have it anyways? So don't feel like you are limited to achieving what you can achieve on your own with your own skills, with your own capabilities. Go and ask for help. Bring in other people with more talent, with more robust skill sets in areas where you don't have it, and let them propel you into higher levels of success.
All right. As we get ready to close out our conversation today, Luke, I've got some rapid fire questions I want to ask you. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. What is your favorite financial tool or software for entrepreneurs?
Oh, for entrepreneurs specifically, favorite financial tool is a cash flow forecast, hands down.
All right. A book that changed how you think about money or business.
The Ascent of Money. It's a financial history of the world that walks you through how currency was at one point in time painted seashells that people exchanged for goods, all the way up to printed cash to today, where money is effectively nothing but digits on a screen. It's completely digital. It's a fascinating read on how money as a medium of exchange has evolved over the course of the history of the world. It's fascinating.
Okay. I don't often write books down that people recommend on the show, but I just wrote that down because I've never heard that book. And that concept is extremely interesting to me. Luke,
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to go check that out. I actually give a talk called The History of Money frequently.
Okay.
I probably do it 2 or 3 times a year, and I go into the back,
Yeah.
and I talk about some of that stuff, but I'd never heard of that book. I'm going to have to go look it up. But
Niall Ferguson, I think, is the author.
all right. Well, I'm going to have to definitely look that up. But Luke, thank you for being on the show, man. Congratulations on your success and
Thank you.
pushing through the negative that you had, the emotions that we talked about at the beginning, and all the success you've had as a fractional CFO and a educator in financial matters. How could people get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just shoot me an email. It's luke.boyinger@kruzumi.com. or find me on LinkedIn. Fun fact, I'm the only Luke Boyinger in the entire world. So if you search for me, I'm the only one you're going to find. Or visit our website at kruzumi.com.
And that is spelled Cruzumi, Kruzumi,
Correct.
Kruzumi.com, and Luke Boyinger. Luke, thank you so much for being on the show. Once again, congratulations on all your success.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it and enjoyed the chat.
All right, you know what time it is, listeners. It's time for another edition of JD's Public Service Rants. This is the part of the show where I call out the little things that shouldn't have to be said, but clearly they do. But if you're guilty of this one, you need to consider yourself officially put on notice. I want to talk to you shopping cart lazy people. If you push your shopping cart all the way to the curb and then just leave it there like it's somebody else's problem, you're part of the reason society is unraveling. I'm convinced of it. I went to Home Depot the other day and I went to park at a spot. There's a cart in the spot. Went back to the same Home Depot because that's what you have to do. I think it's a 2 time per day thing. You have to do that when you're working on home projects. Same parking spot, different cart because I put the other one back. Listen, if you're that person, you've managed to walk the cart out of the store so you can manage to return it to the corral. So please, for the love of all that is good in all humanity, stop abandoning your carts on medians and in the middle of the parking lot like they're tired horses after a long ride. Park it like a grown-up. Well, that's it for today, JD's Public Service Rant. If you've got an idea for one of these, send it over to me. And remember, don't be that guy. Big thanks to Luke Boyinger for being my guest on today's episode of The Root of All Success. And big thanks to you, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, for tuning in on Spotify or on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for being here. Thank you for leaving a comment on any of those platforms because that increases the algorithm's desire to push this in front of more people. So thank you for being a part of that solution. And I want you to tune in again next time when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.